And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're going to be taking a look at Sentinels of the Universe, Shattered Timelines. I love Sentinels of the Universe. It is a great cooperative superhero game in which you work together to take out villains. Shattered Timelines doesn't really add any new rules, it just adds some new heroes, some new villains. What Shattered Timelines does do is it adds a good theme to the game, and that's of, well, time, going throughout time. Now the game doesn't do wonky stuff with time, it just has time as kind of a background theme to the new villains and characters. The first thing the expansion adds is 2 more environments. First we have the Block, which is basically a big prison in time and space somewhere. We have guards who are walking around in a block, but we also have prisoners, and they won't attack each other, but they certainly will come after you. Well, the prisoners might go after the guards, and in fact you gotta be careful because if a prison riot will bring out all the prisoners. At the same time, if the warden comes out, then all the guards really pump up. And actually, this one I think is an easier one than else, because if you can get the guards to go after the villain, which is what they would do in real life, that's fine. But once the inmates become free, then they're coming after you. And so it's a very interesting one. I like the theme of it quite a bit. But I like even more the theme where we have the time cataclysm. And this almost basically has cards throughout different times, mostly from anomalies that come from different times. You can see here the main computer room, and hey, here's one of those agents who shows up from that, and the Tendrils of Madness. But they also have some, I love how they have a dinosaur in this one, a typhoon, and a giant mutated specimen, along with one of my favorite named cards in the game, the Surprise Shopping Trip. Neither one of these environments is cataclysmic, even though that's the name of this one, to your gameplay. I do love the theme that both add. For villains, we first have the Dreamer, who is a very interesting villain. One of the more unique ones out there. Basically, she starts out, she's a little girl who is sleeping at night, and she's very nice. The problem is, she is summoning these evil people, like the Toy Master, and probably the most nasty and annoying Tooth Fairy you ever see, or a treacherous ape, or the Whippicorn. I'm not sure I've ever seen a creature like this. And the thing is, you have to kill these creatures without hurting her. Your attacks are going to hurt her or different things, and if she dies, you lose. So you have to kill enough of these, basically the number of these times the players times 2, which isn't that hard. These things are a pain, but they're not that hard to kill. You know, the Dark Hero can be annoying, and the Granite only are annoying, but it's doing it without killing her at the same time, which is hard. And you can see she only has 6 hit points. Then we have Kismet, who is a little similar to Domino from the Marvel Universe in that she is the charmed scoundrel, and she's all nice, but she has this talisman here, which will really up her attacks against players. But the fact is, if they destroy this talisman, and you'll want to, then you've stolen it, then she goes berserk and just becomes really powerful. But meanwhile, she is constantly throwing these jinxes on the players and sticking these jinxes in front of each player. Like, for example, this one here increases the damage done to that player by 1. Well, this one here, whenever you play a card, you do yourself 1 damage. And you can get rid of these jinxes by attacking each other. So they can be a real pain in the neck, and there's all sorts of jinxes that are in this game, not to mention different one-shots. She's not that difficult to beat, but she is a pain, and again, I like the idea of the jinxes. La Capitane, the Time Corsair, starts with a ship. And honestly, she's not a very unique villain. There's other villains, I believe Baron, the Baron, in the original set, she has a very similar feel to him, where she attacks and this ship attacks, and as the game progresses, she'll have other people, the amazing Mabel, and different folks will come and help her fight with her crew. But at the same time, you cannot avoid these guys. You really want to take them out because they'll be causing a lot of damage to you. That ship is especially a pain, but then there are cards that will bring that ship back. But I do enjoy the theme of her. I really feel, very piratey. She reminds me of one of the pirates from the Girl Genius webcomic. And so just the motley crew and just different cards, basically as she takes her ship throughout time. A fun villain, but not an especially difficult one. Speaking of difficult, oh look, it's Legacy, the superhero, the Superman of this universe. What a wonderful guy, except in an alternate universe where he is Iron Legacy. Iron Legacy starts out as an ironclad tyrant, and look at all the different people that he has mortal enemies with, and then changes to motivated by desperation. The problem with him is he starts with several ongoing cards in play. Like, he's only 32 points, but I can reduce damage done to him by 1, and he regains hit points equal to the number of players every turn. And I'm going to start with 5 of these in play. And whenever this card enters play, he'll deal each non-villain target a toxic damage. Whenever a hero uses a power, he regains 2 hit points. And he has so many of these cards. He is, by far, in my opinion, even more than the Matriarch, the hardest character in the game. I can't even imagine beating him unless we stack the deck in our favor. That is how difficult he is. He is a real pain in the neck, and I like him, that he's fun to play against, and I like the theme of evil Legacy coming from an alternate universe, but oh my goodness, is he hard. One of the things that the recent expansions have done is they've added a lot of new superheroes, which were difficult to use. This one adds in 2 superheroes that you can jump right in. They're very easy to use. I really like Omnitron X, basically a robot. One of the things that he has is that he has equipment, different plating that he can put on him. And each of these plating will reduce damage by 2 different ones. Like this one does cold, fire, and lightning. This one does melee, projectile, and toxic. This one does psychic, infernal, radiant, and sonic. And there's even a card that lets you search for one of them. You can only have 1 in play at any specific time, but the fact that you can have those in play and pull them out, hopefully you can cater your defenses to whatever the villain is going. And that's not all he has. He has all sorts of equipment and one-shots that let him destroy ongoing cards, that let him help the other people. Sometimes it will deal damage to the other players, so you have to be careful. Sometimes he has equipment that's a one-time use. He can actually shoot his plating off and do damage that way. Basically, he's a robot with a lot of cool equipment and some cool powers. And then we have one of my favorite heroes in the game so far, the Chrono Ranger. Not only is the theme of him cool, going throughout time, he's basically an old Doctor Who, I guess, going around with a gun. He has that gun. He can shoot that projectile damage. A lot of his cards have that. But he has these bounties that he can place on people. These are especially useful when you're fighting a villain who has thugs with them, because he can place these bounties, and when these targets go out of play, he will get a special ability. For example, he can put this bounty on somebody and increase the damage that he does to that target by 1, and the first time they do damage each turn, he can use a power. So he tags them. Or this one here, when the target leaves play, you draw a card. When you can play this on a non-character card. When that target would be destroyed, you put on the bottom of its deck instead, and then destroy this card. So there's a lot of neat things that you can do, but you have things like take the bounty cards into your hand. There's also cards that give you bonus damage depending on the number of bounties that you have. And so there's all sorts of equipment and cards, and a lot of them have to do with the bounties and hurting the players. For example, right here, the Chrono Ranger deals 1 target, X irreducible energy damage, where X is the number of bounty cards in play. Get 3 or 4 bounty cards in play, and the Chrono Ranger becomes one of the most powerful characters in the game. A great addition. This is a really fantastic expansion. If you have just the basic game, you could even get this as your first expansion, because it adds 2 new cool heroes to the game and adds 4 good villains, especially one that's just stinking hard, but the other ones aren't so hard, so you have that variability to go back and forth. The Dreamer is a pretty tough cookie herself to take out, but the Captain and and Kismet, they are doable, especially with these 2 new characters, which I like both of them. Any day I'll take a team with Omnitrix X and the Chrono Ranger. That's some pretty neat additions to the game. Everything in here fits easily into the main box, so it's just we're not looking at all these new mechanics, this is more the same, but it's some good more the same. I highly recommend this expansion, Shattered Timelines.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
Do.